Splatoon is, hands down, the most colorful game I've played in recent years. Like, I'm not saying this to be a joke. The game is literally the most amount of color I've seen in a video game since, I don't know, The Blob. Since The Blob. It's the first time Nintendo tried to make an original franchise since Pikmin. And for all intents and purposes, it didn't look like it was going to do that well, given it was a competitive shooter and we were talking about Nintendo. Heck, the fact that there's no voice chat is actually a big point of contention for this game. But then the game came out, and it honestly ended up being loads better than anyone thought it was going to be. And the best part is that this game might actually be the best example I've ever seen of how to handle DLC post-launch. When the game came out, it was pretty bare bones as far as features went. It had the single-player mode, which was pretty fleshed out, but for the most part it served as a pretty interesting tutorial to all of the game's mechanics. The bulk of the game was in the multiplayer, and in leveling your character up and getting better loadouts and clothing and whatever. But it was pretty bare bones at launch, and I think the level cap was 20? Was it 20? I don't know, but it was a pretty low number. But rather than do what most games do, which is to sell you an incomplete product and then sell you the rest of the game as it should have been later on, the game actually provides extra content to its multiplayer completely free of charge. It just keeps releasing content as it's created, and through that content the game actually gets better and better and better and more replayable, and it's a fantastic example of how to handle post-launch DLC. I can't stress that enough. But the best part about this game is actually how it handles its competitive nature. The game itself doesn't have any voice chat or anything like that, which is kind of a bummer, but whatever. But still, every game type has a clear-cut objective, and it doesn't necessarily require communication with your other teammates to actually get that objective across. Most of the time, it's cover the entire floor in paint, and that's a pretty easy objective. If you see a part that doesn't have paint, go over there and paint it. If you see people that are trying to paint the thing, go help them paint the thing. It encourages teamwork without having to communicate with any of your team members verbally, and I think that's pretty great. But the colorful and childish presentation actually makes it more appealing to a wider audience. Yeah, the competitive nature can draw in the standard hardcore gamer, and I hesitate to use that term because what the hell is a hardcore gamer? But it draws them in, and then the presentation can draw in children, and the ease of getting into the game can draw in older people, and it has such a wide appeal, and I think that's fascinating. Competitive shooters are usually really hard to get into, especially given the community that usually revolves around them. But then here comes Nintendo and creates this amazing original IP, which is a competitive shooter, but the objectives are clearly laid out, verbal communication isn't needed, the presentation and the colors gives it a much wider appeal, and the post-launch DLC keeps it relevant, especially given it's free. Even if the DLC is coming at a later date, it's all free, so it's part of the package. When you buy the game, all of this DLC is guaranteed for you, and I think that legitimately makes it a complete game, even if it wasn't complete at the time of its release. It's honestly an amazing game, and I can't recommend it enough, and I don't even know what I'm rambling about anymore. I just think it's great. Go buy it. Go play Splatoon. If there is ever a game that you should get during this holiday season, make it Splatoon.